All right. Hello there, my friends. Welcome once again to another episode of the Red Delta Project podcast and Q&A live feed here on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel, where we are simplifying fitness by taking a fundamental approach to diet and exercise methods to give you the most power, control, and freedom over your healthy lifestyle. As always, I'm Matt Schifferly, founder of the Red Delta Project, and today's episode is brought to you by the books available in the Red Delta Project library: Micro Workouts, Overcoming Isometrics, Smart Bodyweight Training, Grind Style Calisthenics, and coincidentally enough, the Grind Style Calisthenics month 2 of the free program is now available on the YouTube channel as well. For those who are following along, remember the Grind Style program is a year-long, completely free workout program, bodyweight training, a little bit of weighted calisthenics and suspension training in there to help you build muscle and strength. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. We are discussing common mistakes that pop up, particularly with progressive calisthenics, like with convict conditioning and so forth. But these are things that I find just time after time they plague people. And I get emails and DMs on Instagram and stuff all the time from people saying, I can't seem to build the muscle and strength that I want. And it's usually one of these mistakes that's just made over and over. And I know I've addressed these in previous episodes, but I need to keep bringing them up to make everyone aware of them and how to overcome them. So probably the single biggest mistake boils down to essentially a lack of knowledge about how to adequately progress bodyweight training in order to adequately stimulate the muscles to adapt the way you want them to. Remember, when it comes down to having a change in the body, whatever it is, you want speed, power, muscle strength, whatever like that, how you do that fundamentally is the same regardless of the method you use. You build muscle and strength with weights for the same way you do it with bodyweight training. Exactly the same. Nothing's changing. We need to make sure that the sensations that we're feeling from bodyweight training are exactly the same as you would with any other method that you're using. So one of the biggest mistakes that often comes about is we think, okay, if I'm using a different method, like calisthenics, instead of using weight machines or bands or something like that, then I need to change how I'm training. I need to change sets and reps a little bit. I need to program it a little bit differently. Or sometimes people will adopt a program and they're like, okay, I'm following this program, but I'm not building muscle and strength like I was in the gym with weights. And I was like, well, do you feel like you're doing the same thing to your muscles with the weights? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, you need to do the same thing. At the end of the day, the rules don't change. We all have the same adaptation of whatever we're looking for, building up our muscles and strength and power and stuff for the same fundamental reasons. It's not about what kind of program are you on or what kind of tools are you using, rings versus suspension trainers and stuff. You need your muscles to basically be doing the same thing. So there's actually nothing different with building muscle and strength of calisthenics as there is with doing it with like weight machines or free weights and stuff. And if you feel like it's really different, then something needs to change. And one of the reasons why we often think it's different is because we don't have an adequate level of knowledge about how to adjust the resistance adequately of progressive calisthenics or weighted calisthenics or what have you. A couple people coming on in here real quick. Ty Flows saying, hey, Matt, just saw the notification. Thanks, and decided to come by to say hi. Have a nice stream. Thank you very much, my friend. I do sincerely appreciate it to say hi. So one of the things that we have to recognize about effective strength training in general is the ability to adjust resistance and adjust the amount of tension in the muscle. Adjusting time, because fundamentally we only have those two variables: how much tension is in the muscle and how long is it there for. Time is real easy to adjust. You do more or less of it. It's that simple. But when it comes to adjusting the amount of tension in the muscle, we want to make sure that that's heavily correlated, of course, with resistance on the working limbs, resistance on your legs, resistance on your arms, and so on. And so when we are using our muscles in different ways, we want to be able to adjust that resistance. And if you're not, you're already way behind the 8 ball. You've already come to the plate with 2.5 strikes against you, and the ball is already halfway across the plate for strike number 3, and you haven't swung yet. So you're already way, way, way behind, which is why we want to have a wide range of abilities to adjust that kind of resistance. So if you're coming to calisthenics and bodyweight training with the level of knowledge of whatever push-ups you did back in like high school gym class. They even have gym class in high school anymore, or like in martial arts and stuff like that. Usually that's not even close to adequate. Like, I'm just going to do a lot of these push-ups and stuff. Not even close. You wouldn't go into a gym, pick up an empty barbell on a bench press and be like, I'm just going to keep pushing this 100 bazillion times a day. And, that's it. That's my whole strategy. And most anybody in the gym would be like, why in the world would you possibly do that? But fundamentally, that's exactly what you do when you're like, well, I'm just going to keep doing a million gazillion push-ups and not actually make it any harder on my muscles. I'm not actually making my muscles work harder. If you're not making your muscles work harder, you can't expect them to adapt to build more strength. You're just wearing them out. You're just building up some of that endurance. So let's see, a couple more things coming on in here real quick. Prod switch. How would you suggest to increase muscle ups endurance in calisthenics? Eat before, do it fasted to stay light. Also, is progress linear? What happens if you don't always progress circuits under time? So a lot to unpack here. First off, I wouldn't really go too far into the food thing. I don't think it really matters. More of an energy thing. Like, your ability to have an adequate workout depends far more on your energy level than food. It's especially with a lot of times, let's be honest with you, when it comes to exercise, my general rule of thumb is any sort of physical activity that's an hour or less does not need any sort of nutrition intervention at all. Like, I work out for an hour. What should I eat? Nothing. Well, I want to do nothing. Like, it's not a big enough deal. Like, it's funny how we think we need to eat more or eat differently because we do something called an exercise. And it's not, because fundamentally the body doesn't know what exercise is. It just knows physical activity. This was a big mistake that I made back in the day, where back in high school and stuff, I always took these really hard, physically demanding manual labor jobs during the summer to make money, partially because I wasn't good at anything. And also because in that part of Vermont at that time, that's what you did. You helped farmers in the field, or I would get jobs, stocking soda on shelves and stuff. It was all just physically demanding. So the funny thing is, I would be like, okay, I've got like a 12-hour workday. I'm going to be on my feet all day. I'm going to be squatting and lifting, heavy pallets and things like that. I'm going to do all day, but I'm not going to eat very much because I'm not working out. But then I would go and do a Taekwondo class, which was an hour. And half the time we were basically just kind of maybe stretching and stuff. We weren't really that physically active, but I'd be like, I got to eat a whole lot because I got Taekwondo coming up. So we got to get out of that mindset of exercise in and of itself doesn't necessarily require anything there. I know you're asking about weight, but again, your weight's going to be very transient unless you're like literally working out at exactly the same time, at exactly the same hydration level, same like weather patterns and stuff, because of course, you're going to sweat more if it's hot out and stuff like that. Don't worry about it. Focus more on your energy level. If you're really tired, your endurance is going to go down. If you feel really good, endurance is probably going to go up. So in that regards, things like sleep and stress management stuff are probably far more important to you. The other thing I would ask is why the endurance with, or why do you want to do more muscle ups? This is another mistake that a lot of people make with calisthenics, is sometimes, and just fitness in general, where we just get stuck following after a pursuit of a goal. And it's a much more interesting thing to say, well, why? Like, we always want to have a very compelling why behind what we're doing. It can literally just be, I don't know, I just like it. Okay, great. That's good enough reason right there. But a lot of times I find with calisthenics, people get stuck thinking, I need to do more of something. For some reason, it's more about the endurance side of things. When it comes to weights, it's like, I got to lift more weight, but they stay at the same relative rep range. But when it comes to calisthenics, people are like, I want to do more. I'm like, well, why? We didn't change anything. It'd be like saying, oh, I want to be able to bench press 135 more repetitions. I got 15 reps. I want to get 20. Like, why? Why that goal? What do you think is going to happen with that sort of thing? It could be maybe you have a required goal if you need to do that to pass a PT test or something. So we always want to make sure of that. But bottom line is I would order the food and everything like that. Like, I don't care what you do. It probably doesn't matter very much. If you do it fasted versus eating and stuff, it probably isn't going to matter. But if you find that one increases energy level better, then it matters. I don't know. Probably won't, but give it a shot. And to the last part of your question, is progress linear? Absolutely not. Never is, never has been, never will be. Now, the beginner always will say, sure, I've added 5 pounds to this bar every week for the past month, or I've been able to add 3 push-ups to my max reps for the past month. But no, progress is never linear. It's like you see these things on social media of like how we think progress works, up in a nice straight line, how it really works. And it's like this squiggly all over, and it's off the page, and it's up and down and left and right and backwards and flying on a dragon and stuff. It's always a chaotic thing, because at the end of the day, this is a puzzle. We are trying to figure this stuff out, because remember, my friends, in order for you to get the result you want, you're trying to do something that's never been done before, ever. It's like, what are you talking about? People have lost weight and people have increased their muscle ups and people have been, yes, but nobody's done it under your circumstances. Nobody's done it with your experience and your genetics and all these other sorts of things. So progress at the end of the day is always solving a puzzle. There's no set game plan that's definitely going to work for you. The people I know who always get the best results always had to figure it out to some degree, like figuring out a puzzle. I don't know of a single person who's like, yep, I got this game plan. I started on step 1, and 5 years later, I got to the end of it and everything worked perfect. I've never known that to happen, ever, in anything in life. Building businesses, writing a book and stuff, it's always got a chaotic element to it. And the more we understand that, the more we understand it's a good thing. All right. Piyush, how's it going? Hey, Matt, currently doing pike push-ups for vertical pressing. Love pike push-ups. Should I progress them by doing leg elevated pike push-ups, or try doing them on parallettes first? Okay, good. So here's another mistake that a lot of people make, is they get stuck with one progressive variable. Okay, so usually that's repetitions. So like, I just got to do more. Sometimes it's things like, okay, I've got to add more weight, if they're doing like weighted push-ups or even just regular stuff, but they get stuck on one thing. And I did a video earlier this week of yes, progression is very important to get better results, but what are you progressing and why? There's a lot of different ways we can progress every exercise. So we can make it more challenging, but the key thing is to make it more challenging for the right reasons. If you don't know what those reasons are, you're very likely to pick on a progressive variable at random, and you get really good at something that has nothing to do with your actual objectives and goals. And this is why a lot of times people will work really hard and they'll make lots of progress, and then they're going to look back on it and be like, well, that was a complete waste of time. It didn't give me anything that I wanted. So let's look at this from your example here. Elevated pike push-ups. What's that going to do? Put more weight on your hands. Right, so you're elevating your feet, you're loading up your hands more. Good. So more weight on the hands, potentially more tension in the muscle. Is your goal to make your pressing stronger? Now, the other one is going with parallettes. So now you can do, quote, negative negative pike push-ups, where you can get a bigger range of motion. So there's a lot to unpack there too. With a deficit, you are looking at a bigger range of motion. So is range of motion part of the goal? You want to be able to have more mobility in the shoulders. It's also going to require more tension in the muscle there, because the leverage on the muscle increases as you get deeper. So you are getting stronger that way. Then we also have to look at other variables like, okay, pike push-ups, maybe a little bit more vertical, parallettes. Okay, so when you do the parallettes, your hands are going to be slightly elevated. So I'm assuming your feet are going to be a little more elevated as well, in order to keep the amount of weight on your hands about the same. So are you able to do one with the elbows in more, versus like if you start doing, harder ones, are you starting to flail out? Are you starting to lose form in your upper body, and so on? So this is a big mistake that, again, comes about with setting one progressive variable. This is the way I need to progress, and you just stay on that path indefinitely, not knowing that that's actually not at all the path you should be following. Sometimes you don't want to be progressing reps. Sometimes you don't want to be progressing in like steps, like in combat conditioning. Sometimes it's more of a technical thing of, okay, I'm progressing by keeping my elbows in more. I'm progressing by increasing my range of motion. So it really boils down, my friend, to what do you want? Do you want just more tension in the muscle? And you're like, I want to make the muscles work harder. Do you want that range of motion? Sometimes I've known people when they start doing things on the deficit, they're like, it just feels really good on the shoulders, that range of motion. I'm really getting my shoulders back. It just feels like it's a lot more comfortable. Great. So I would try both and then see which one is challenging your vertical pressing strength the way you want it to progress, because we gain that which we challenge. So which one is progressing what you want? And that's what you want to make your choice on. Because this is a great thing about progressive calisthenics is you get to progress so many different ways. You have so many options. And it's kind of like saying, well, why choose? Why have to be forced into one when you have so many choices? So you can actually go after the things that you want. Greg, hey, my friend, good to see you. It's so good to see you. I've been doing jackknife pull-ups after seeing you recommend them, and they have helped me out, me put another piece in the puzzle. Thanks. Great. Awesome. Wonderful. Good to hear it, Greg. So the jackknife pull-up is one of those moves at the bodyweight gym that I work at here in Denver. We use those a lot. And one of the reasons why is because a lot of people, one of the big mistakes that people get stuck in is what I call the calisthenics rut. And the calisthenics rut means that we keep doing things the same way. Okay, so remember with calisthenics, we adjust the difficulty by technique. Case in point with the pike push-ups there, we can go on an elevated surface, we can put more weight on the hands, we can go with a bigger range of motion with different tools like parallettes or rings or stuff. There's lots of different ways we can adjust. But especially for newcomers, when they are getting used to calisthenics, they fixate on one particular way of doing an exercise. Usually it's the standard military style pull-up, push-up, and two-legged bodyweight squat and stuff. Great exercises, but those are a particular level of challenge, level of strength, stability, and mobility. So if we always do the same exercise and think, okay, this is how a pull-up works, you grab up on the pull-up bar and you try and pull your full body weight and stuff like that, the chances of that actually being the right level of challenge for you is not very good. It's kind of like getting in a car and saying 45 miles an hour. You can only drive 45 miles an hour. Anything above that is too fast. Anything slower than that is too slow, which is ridiculous because, of course, we safely drive and effectively get to our destination by changing our speed. So having exercises like Greg's jackknife pull-ups, where you have your feet on either the ground or on maybe an elevated surface like a chair or something like that, and you're pulling yourself up. You're still doing a pull-up, but your body's in kind of like a seated position, like a jackknife, Nico. That is a different level of pull-up. So by using that as well as regular pull-ups, plus you have all sorts of micro progressions. You have jackknife pull-ups with the legs straight, with the legs bent, with your ankles crossed, one-legged jackknife pull-ups. You can have your hands wider, you can have your feet wider. All of these things can make subtle changes to the strength, stability, and mobility requirements of the exercise. So what that does is it gives you the ability to adjust the resistance. Because one of the biggest mistakes that we make is not only getting caught in the calisthenics rut, but even if you have a good versed approach in progressive calisthenics, you read Convict Condition and you're like, great, but you still stay stuck at one level. People are like, oh, I'm on level 4 of, the jackknife pull-ups and stuff. And you stay with one thing. Now, in the weightlifting world, if you told a coach, it's like, this is the only weight I lift, like bench press 135, let's say, that's the only weight I ever lift, they'd be like, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, that's no way to lift weight. Like, the weight can change. There's a good reason. I was working out with a group in a gym today, and I was telling them, I want you to change the weight throughout the workout a lot. Hell, I want you to change it throughout the set. There were some machines we were using where the weight stack. I'm like, I want you to start off hard because you got like 30 total reps on the pull down machine. And I want you to get like 6 or 7. And then you're like, I got to drop it down, and then you're going. I'm like, the worst thing you can do is just grab onto those handles, have a weight and be like, well, I guess that's the weight I lift. And then you always lift that same weight. Why? That's like using only one speed in your car. The weight is easy to adjust, so adjust it. Sometimes you want it to be harder. Sometimes you want it a lot harder. Sometimes you need it to be easier. Adjust accordingly. Same exact thing with calisthenics training. Sometimes you're going to be like, I'm going to try commando pull-ups and make it really, really, really hard. Or one-arm rows on the rings. I'm like, oh, man, I can only get 5. Sometimes, though, you want it jackknife pull-ups. And you are drop setting. You're warming up. Maybe your shoulder's a little wonky. Maybe it's just a case of I'm working on my range of motion and keeping my shoulder blades back. We want to have access and utilize a very wide range of resistance. You want, because this is something that I had always thought when I was building my first home gym. I was all about dumbbells. I'm like, I want dumbbells that are definitely going to be too light for me. So like 3 pounds or so. I was like, what the hell am I going to use 3 pounds for? I'm never going to need 3 pounds. Good. That's what I want. And I also want to go up in weight to the point where it's going to be way heavy. And I'm like, good Lord, I'm never going to use that much weight, because you want that big range of potential resistance. Because sometimes you never know, there could be an exercise you find where it's like, oh my gosh, 3 pounds is more than enough. And other times, like farmer carries at like 90 pounds, that's just barely beginning. That's a warm up. So you always want to have a very wide range, and you want to use as much of that resistance range as possible. I'm not saying you have to use all of it every workout, but don't get stuck at one level. Don't get caught in that calisthenics training rut, because I guarantee you there's going to be times where you're going to need to go much heavier. And there's going to be times you're going to need to go much lighter, and everything in between. If you don't have that adjustability, either you know how to progress calisthenics or you're just not willing to, then you're stuck, and nothing will make you plateau and limit yourself faster, even if it's, quote, optimal sort of approach. All right. What say we can answer some more questions here? SJ coming on. Hey, Matt, duonomic pull-ups. Yes, fantastic. Resistance straps or resistance bands. 50 plus in age now. Thank you very much. Well, you can go with a number of different things. I've always preferred myself just weight, calisthenics and pull-ups and stuff like that. Using suspension straps. I'm assuming that's what you mean with resistance straps. That is weightlifting. I've never been a big band fan, just because that resistance curve just drives me crazy. When the band is relaxed, or not relaxed, but just slightly tight, there's almost no resistance on the limb. And as you stretch it, the resistance grows and grows and grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. But then when you bring it back, it goes off. So you got this huge resistance curve. Yes, sometimes that's a good thing. Yes, sometimes you want that. But generally, I'm not a big fan of it. So I would say duonomic pull-up handles, and check out the rings that they have, that they just came out with. I'm going to be doing a review on it fairly shortly. Or just a simple suspension setup that you can use in a door or something, like the NOS trainers. All those resources are down below, by the way, folks. Plus the promo code on those duonomic pull-up handles, grind style, will save you 10% on those, as well as the rings if you like. That's another thing, is equipment. This is a mistake that I made a long time ago, where you would think equipment really matters that much, but it really doesn't. It really isn't that important. It's like suspension trainer versus gymnastics rings, kettlebells versus dumbbells and stuff. Look, again, it boils down to what is the muscle fundamentally doing. If I've worked my bicep against resistance like this, I'm going to build a bigger, stronger bicep, regardless of the tool, the exercise, or even to a certain degree, the programming. So use whatever you like. Someone out there could be like, I don't like suspension trainers. Even me, I'm like, I don't like bands. I'm not a big band fan. But if you're like, dude, the pump I get from bands is insane, go with bands. Go with whatever you enjoy using, because it really doesn't matter. So if you enjoy it, then it matters, and that's what you should go with. Once again, hey, Matt, what's your opinion on those who have built muscle and mass doing straight reps and sets in the street workout community? Whether that be 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 400 reps, and that's the workout, and so on. So yeah, you can order these things any way that you like. So here we go with another mistake, and this is maybe not so much a calisthenics mistake, but a workout training mistake, where people will just look at the minutia of their workouts a million different ways. Like, should I do 5 reps and then 8 reps and then 30 seconds of rest? And they start getting the beautiful mind formulas around them, and they're like on the chalkboard with a million different algorithms and stuff like that. Don't second guess things. The beautiful thing is that you can make progress, build muscle and strength, working almost any sort of program that will challenge your strength. Remember, the only requirement on a fundamental level for you to get the results that you want is you gain that which you challenge. I don't care how you do it. I don't care what your workout looks like. I don't care what you're trying to do, aside from just a few basic things, which I'll get into in a minute. But if you challenge your strength, you're going to get stronger. If you challenge your muscular work capacity, meaning how hard and long it can work, it's going to get the stimulus to build itself up. If you challenge your stamina, you're going to build endurance. If you challenge your explosive power, you're going to become more poppy and powerful and stuff. I don't really think it matters how you do it. All you got to do is keep your compass needle on, is this challenge an adequate challenge for the thing that I want to do? And if it is, it's going to work. It's going to create that stimulus, bottom line. We don't need to get too much lost in the weeds of programming variables and what does the science say between this and that and stuff, because a lot of times the stuff that we create, because it is a very creative process, remember, nobody's done what you've done before. So a lot of times what's going to work best for you is the stuff you create and you make up on the fly. I used to work out with a guy in the playgrounds and we literally would get together and it's like, dude, I got an idea. We're going to do X and Y and it's going to be done this way. I'm like, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. Is there any sort of like, what does the science say about the studies on mice and stuff? No, none whatsoever. All I know is like, yeah, that's going to work the shoulders. There we go. It's going to probably build bigger shoulders, better shoulders, right? That's all it needs to be. So have fun and be creative. A lot of the street workout stuff you have, they're not doing it that way largely because it's supposedly effective. They're doing it that way because it's fun, because it's engaging. Guys in the street workout community, they're working out together and stuff. So stuff like that works well with multiple people. And that's exactly what my buddy and I would do. It's like, okay, you do a rep, then I'm going to do a rep. You do two, and I'll do two. And we're just going to keep going until one of us can't keep up with the other person. Dude, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. Great way to work your muscular work capacity. Therefore, a stimulus for building muscle. That's all it's got to be. Lot of fans. All right, Ivan asking good questions. Hey, Matt, what are the best abs exercises in your opinion? Okay, another opportunity here for another mistake. And this one's kind of fed by the internet and stuff. It's like, best this, right? What's the best ab exercise? What's the best exercise for this? What's the best program for that? Or the best tool for that? The end of the day, it's like, I don't know. I don't really think who cares kind of thing. We got to be able to effectively engage the muscle. Okay, you make your abs engage and work them progressively harder. Whatever you can do to do that, it's going to be your best, right? So there's a lot of variables that go into what makes an exercise adequate and sufficient or even really good. Is it something you have the skill and proficiency for? Is it something you have the tension control to do? You know, like I love, stretch outs on rings. Love. But many people, they don't have the contractile ability to keep their pelvis in a posterior pelvic tilt or a hollow body position to keep their abs engaged. So if they don't have that, that's a terrible exercise. Horrible. Even though it can potentially be very good, but it really boils down to that. What do you enjoy doing, right? What is going to be adequate for challenging the elements that I talked about earlier for you? Like, so if you are like, oh, these crunches are awesome for the abs, they're going to make my abs stronger. How many can you do? I could do 500 in a row. No, that's not going to be very adequate for building strength. If you can do 500 of them, how hard could your abs possibly be working? Not really. It's like, I don't feel the burn until number 200. I'm like, yeah, because it's easy. It's not adequate for you. So you want to have an exercise that's challenging enough for building the qualities that you want to develop. Is it enough to challenge your stamina? Like the stretch outs, I'll do it hard enough that I get 5. Is that really good enough for challenging my core strength stamina? Or it's like, I want to be able to hold something for a minute. No, because I'm only doing it for 5 reps. It's like 10 seconds, if that. So I would use a different exercise, plank, hollow body hold perhaps or something. So that's what we want to do, is play around, experiment with the different exercises. Use a lot of different stuff. That's why you want to have a big toolbox, lots of different stuff that you can do, and then play around and be like, okay, that exercise, I didn't really feel that much in my abs, and that kind of, I'm not feeling that. But you do another one and you're like, whoa, that was awesome. Boom, there's your answer. That's the kind of thing that you want to be going after. Ravi, how's it going? Ravi, hey, Matt, I hope you're doing well. Very well, thank you. I've been using a variation on your Veterano program. Very good. Man, I came out with that like 20 years ago. Holy smokes. I have 3 young kids and no time, so it works well for me. Yeah, very good. So Veterano is workout from convict conditioning, where you basically, you have the big 6 from convict conditioning of squat, push-up, pull-up, handstand, leg raises, bridges, Yeah, and that's it. And you basically do one each day of the week and have a rest day. So each one is worked once, and that's it. And I have my own little program. There's the ebook for free over at reddeltaproject.com. Originally, it was called Veterano Plus. I've since called it CC Plus, or Combat Conditioning Plus, which is basically the same program, but you have your one set, or you have your one exercise that you're primarily working on, your pull chain, right? But you still do the others every single day. You just kind of do it in a lighter format to just kind of get good at it, get feeling stable and mobile and stuff, like doing squats a little bit every single day. Good for the legs and stuff. You're not necessarily working the muscle, but you're just still getting the blood flowing and stuff like that. Dave coming on. Are the marked straps, like for gymnastics ring, nice to have, save time setup, or kind of gimmicky? No, they're definitely good. Certainly good. And if possible, you want to find straps and methods and stuff. And the duonomic straps for the rings have this, where it's not printed on the nylon with like ink, because it wears out over time. You take that strap and you move it, and the strap literally is rubbing against the teeth of the cam buckle and the edges of the cam buckle and stuff. So that stuff wears off. The trings from Dip and Pull Up that I reviewed a little over a week ago, like they're printed on, and already like a couple of the knot markings and stuff are starting to peel off a little bit and stuff. So it works good. It's a cheaper way to go about it, yes. But if you can, you want to find it where it's stitched in. Where if it's stitched in, then that's going to be much more durable. And that's what the rings for the duonomic pull-up handles use, is a stitched approach. Plus, they have a daisy chain setup, which is way easier and faster to switch. It's like night and day. You look at like cam buckle style, where you usually get them with rings and stuff, and it's like archaic technology compared to this sort of approach. So if you can get it stitched, that's good. If you have the choice between printed versus non, still go for the printed. It's definitely still worth it. Not just so much for getting it to the right height, but just making sure it's kind of level, because it's a little bit tricky in that regard. So definitely recommend it for sure, if you can get it. If you don't worry too much about it. It's just like, are they level? Oh, no, adjust it. There we go. Okay, it's not a big deal, but little things like that just do enhance the experience a little bit. Michael's in the house. Good afternoon, Matt. Stay strong and have fun. I'm always having fun. Thank you very much. Everybody's coming on. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here. Don't forget that I always post the audio to these on the Red Delta Project podcast. So if you missed the first several mistakes and stuff that I talked about, you can always download that on your podcast directory. It's usually available a day or so after this live show. Joe Phil, hey, Matt, any risk of carpal tunnel problem related to training false grip? I don't think so. I would guess not. I haven't heard of anybody doing that, but I do know that that is one thing that is influenced by the genetics. Like, just, do you have a narrower carpal, gap where that nerve goes through in your wrist? Some people are just built better to handle that kind of stress. Also, just, are you involved in jobs where, you're typing and stuff like that, and your wrists are like that? Do you have a regular keyboard, or are you on a laptop, which is kind of awkward and stuff? So be mindful of it. Go through some wrist warm-ups naturally, sure, even if you don't think you need it. If you're kind of nervous about it, going through just some basic wrist exercises like that. The monkey crawls from the GMB Elements program is a great wrist warm-up, where you're in a squat and you place your hands to the side and you just basically kick your legs up, kind of like a pseudo cartwheel, and then land on the other side. So you're taking your wrists and you're just moving them around, weighing on the wrist. Things like that can go a long way in helping you to warm up and prepare. And if you do start feeling any sort of pain in those wrists, address it immediately. Don't be one of these like, oh, I'm fine, because then it's just going to get worse and worse. Let's see, what else can we address here? So that's another mistake that I find people make, is they're not listening to their body. Your body's always giving you feedback based on what is going on with your workouts. Where's their stress? What kind of stimulus are you creating in your muscle? Like, if you do an exercise and you're like, whoa, I feel a real good pump, I feel the muscle working, that is gold. That is so valuable. Don't be like me back in the day where it's like, I'm doing an exercise and it's like, is this working in the chest or the glutes or whatever? I'm like, sure, I suppose it is, I guess. Do you feel it in the muscle? Not really, but I'm sure it's working. No, muscle tension is very much a sensory feedback. It needs to be something felt. And we want to respect pain. We want to even respect stress. We want to respect these negative impacts that are coming back from the body. It doesn't make us tough or macho and very like disciplined to ignore the plight of the body. And I tell my clients every time when I see them the first time, it's like rule number one, we don't do things that hurt. Full stop. If it hurts, we don't do it. Yeah, sure, feeling a muscle really burning during a set of jump lunges or something, sure, that's discomfort. That's not pain. I know we're like, oh, it hurts so bad. No, honestly, it's not pain. But we know what you mean kind of thing. But we do not ignore pain. When we get a little tiny bit of something, and like, oh, there's something there. Yeah, I'm fine. It's okay. And then we keep doing whatever it is. Then we just build it up to be a much bigger problem. And also in that line, I'll also say a big mistake that a lot of people make is they blame the exercise for the problem, when instead the exercise is exposing the problem. This is the thing I used to do again, where I would do like lunges and my knees would hurt, my dips, my shoulders would hurt, pull-ups and my elbows would hurt, kind of thing. I'm like, well, I can't do dips. Dips are bad for your shoulders, yada, yada, and kind of thing. But the reality is that almost all exercises, unless you have something structural, like maybe you do have some damage in your wrist and it's causing that carpal tunnel issue or something, exercises should not cause pain, ever. If there is some sort of pain or detriment resulting from it, it's a sign that something is out of alignment, something's out of balance with it. And when we avoid the exercise, thinking incorrectly that the exercise is to blame, what we're really doing is we're taking, it's like being in a house and there's a fire and we're like, oh, the fire alarm's off. Okay, turn off the fire alarm. Okay, good, problem solved. Like, no, you got rid of the alarm system, but you didn't get rid of the actual problem. Because what ends up happening is people are like, oh, I can't run long distances because of my knees. Okay, run short distances. Well, you didn't address what was causing the real problem. The running was just exposing it. So now you're shorter range of capability. So then it's like, okay, so shorter distance. Then after a while it gets worse. And like, okay, now I can't run shorter distance. Now I'm just going to hike. And it's like, okay, now it's worse. Now I can't go hiking. Now I'm just going to go for nice walks. Okay, now I can't walk. I'm going to, go with just very casual little, motor scooter jaunts or something. Basically what I'm saying is your range of ability is getting smaller and smaller and smaller because you're not addressing the real problem. And then maybe years later, you do see someone, a physical therapist or chiropractor or something, and they're like, oh, wow, holy smokes. Okay, yeah, your knees are in real bad shape. You need major surgery. And even then, you're probably never going to be able to run long distances again. Versus if at the beginning, you went and saw someone about it, like, doc, my knees, like, oh yeah, your hips are out of alignment or something like that. We'll take care of this. And you're back running long distances for another 20 years. So we want to respect pain, but also take the opportunity to learn what it is trying to teach us. Andre, how's it going, Andre? Love your profile pic. Very badass. Hey, Matt, what are your thoughts on very slow repetitions, 5 seconds, more during eccentric, concentric phases? Do you believe it can build strength and lean mass? Honestly, I don't think it really matters whatsoever. So let's look at this. What is the value of doing something slow? Now, fundamentally, okay, does anything change with slow repetitions? Remember, we have two variables: strength, how much tension is in the muscle, how long is it there for? Now, the incorrect assumption is that speed is going to make much of a difference. It kind of does, but not really. Because if you come down and you take, let's say, 10 seconds down and 10 seconds up, that's a 20-second duration. Now, if you get down on the floor and do push-ups for 20 seconds, from a time perspective, you didn't change anything. All right, you're still placing this type of pressing resistance for 20 seconds either way. When you go slower, it does require more tension in the muscle for certain points of the range of motion. So you are spending more time at the position where you have more tension in the muscle. But 1 repetition versus 5, like, okay, I'm there for the total of, let's say, 1 second. But if you do 5 reps, you still have a total time of 1 second. Usually what ends up happening with slow stuff is it's improving control. Like a lot of times if someone's doing dips and they're down in the bottom of the dip and they're like bouncing out and they just don't have any control in a certain point in the range of motion, going real slow can help to improve that stability and that control in those more difficult positions. But fundamentally, for the most part, going slower doesn't do anything. It doesn't have any benefit over just doing more if that amount of tension is still there and the amount of time is roughly the same. Sometimes people will change their speed and tempo and they'll get some better result. But what they've done is they've actually changed how long they do it for. So let's say you're like, oh, do 20 push-ups, boom, 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 boom. Good. It takes them 10 seconds. Now do 10 push-ups real slow, and they do it for 30 seconds. They're like, oh, slowness is all the key, that I go slower and I get much stronger and I feel much better. No, you did it longer. It had nothing to do with the actual speed. So use slower techniques if you want control, but if you have the control already, don't worry about it. It doesn't really do anything, but it is fun to do. It can be fun. Do it just for the sake of like, yeah, okay, I feel good down here, but that's it. You know, there is really not really any big benefit to it. There's not really a whole lot of reason to do that. Dave, great question. How much is overthinking a common mistake? Huge, big time, because I know I'm a broken record here, folks. The fact that you are still here listening to me doing these podcasts all this time really humbles me, because my God, like how many times are the answer that I'm giving probably along the lines of, I don't think it really matters. It probably doesn't matter. Do it if you want, but it probably isn't really that important kind of thing, because that's at the bottom line. A lot of times when we overthink things, we're getting lost in the details. We're making minor things major. We're majoring in minor things, as I've heard. I think Max Shank said that somewhere, I think. He's like, the fitness industry encourages you to major in minor things, small little things that honestly aren't really that important. And if you're ever wondering, like, well, does it matter? Does it really matter? You should know real quick by trying it out. So case in point, slow motion push-ups and stuff, right? Give it a shot. See what it does for you. If it matters, it should give you some pretty powerful feedback very quickly. So when I got into isometrics, for example, I started playing around with it. I'm like, is this really going to matter? And within 48 hours, I was like, oh yeah, that's a big difference in how I'm able to engage and work my muscles. Huge, night and day. There you go. That means it's probably pretty important. But if you're doing something like, should I have strawberries versus raspberries? Which one is more sugar and which one's got better vitamin content and sort of thing? If you eat strawberries one week and raspberries the next week and you're like, I can't really tell, it probably isn't important. And that's sadly a lot of the advice in our fitness culture boils down to that. It really doesn't matter. And when it does matter, it matters because of your individual circumstances. I don't know. I use rings over suspension straps. Why? I just like it. It's what I prefer to use. Okay, great. That's enough reason to do that, or vice versa kind of thing. A lot of times the details that matter just for whatever reason, because that's what seems to go your way better. Oh, excuse me. I already addressed that one. Pardon, get some water here. Seltzer water. I do like my seltzer. Magnus coming on. Hey, Matt, my left shoulder hurts after side planks. I usually do the ones with the elbow on the ground, lifting the opposite leg. Love that exercise. Any tips? Love the channel, by the way. Thank you very much. Videotape yourself. See if you can see a difference on one side or the other. So I would film yourself shooting from head down. So position, like have someone film you, like they're looking at the top of your head. So they're looking down the length of your body, and pay attention to your arm position, but also your scapular position. I would bet money that one of your shoulders is forward and the other one that doesn't hurt is back. You've got probably some scapular protraction or elevation, or a combination of the two, because typically elevation and protraction is an unstable shoulder. Packing the shoulder down and back is more stable. You should feel your lats light up when you do that. So when you're on the side plank, shoulders back and depressed, your lat should be carrying that. And chances are, because you're not doing that, the lat's not holding on to the resistance and it's all going into the shoulder. I would bet money that's what's going on, but have someone videotape you so you can see for yourself. Best of luck with that. Dave is chiming in again. Speaking of overthinking, how much does the rise time in overcoming isometrics really affect the iso loop and stuff? So rise time. So when he's talking about is when we do an isometric, overcoming isometric in particular, we're pulling against something that doesn't move, right? There's a moment where it's kind of like this increase in tension from your nervous system. You don't want to necessarily just go chunk and just pull instantly with everything you've got. You want to kind of press and let the muscles kind of rise in increase. And I think that's extremely important. One is because subconsciously that allows you to not only engage the muscle more fully, but also to engage all of the other associated muscles along the tension chain. So for example, when I use the iso chain, I'm doing overhead press and I do the press until it starts beeping. I'm still like glutes on, hamstrings on, abs on, quads on, back is on and stuff, getting all the other systems. It's kind of like a very short momentary, all systems go check down at like, a rocket launch center is like third thrusters go, second thrusters go. It's like everything's getting checked off to make sure it's online. And so that's what's going with rise time. It's incredibly important. And there's no reason not to do it because you're literally increasing the amount of a set by half a second or a second. And without it, you're missing out. Michael's asking, hey, Matt, any thoughts on Indian club training? Not really. I haven't done any of it myself. A friend of ours brought an Indian club into one of the gyms I work at the other day. And I was like, oh, Indian club, I should learn to use that. And it's still sitting there in the corner. I just haven't been able to really go for it. But, fun thing to do. I know a lot of stuff with that big range of motion and stuff that can only be beneficial to help open things up, especially along the anterior chain when you got things coming behind you and stuff. So, that's another thing is we want to make sure that when we are, the mistake that we typically make is getting caught in fads and trends. Yeah, trads, I guess. But thinking that it's bigger than it really is. We're not going to reinvent the wheel here. So someone could be like, Indian clubs are the best, kettlebells are the best, suspension trainings are the best. No, anything that's good out there is going to be good for the same reason everything else has been good. Because fundamentally, there's only one reason why you get a given result. You're doing the same thing on that fundamental process. You're influencing that process. So somewhere down the line, someone's going to create a new diet, a new workout program, a new piece of equipment, and it's going to be the greatest, awesomest thing since sliced bread. So people jump from one fad to the next thinking it's the answer, but it's not. If it is good, it's going to be good for the same reason everything else before it has been good. You can't reinvent the wheel. And if it doesn't do that sort of thing, it's going to be worse. So that's why we want to have our attention fixated on the fundamental processes. Stimulate and adapt for training. You gain that which you challenge. We nourish to satisfy, eat to satisfy. You want to lose weight? Be in a caloric deficit. All these sorts of things. These are the processes that are always ongoing, and we were trying to influence them. And if you think a new thing is going to be a better influence, better way for you to do it, then go for it. But don't jump on like fads and trends or frads just because you think, they finally figured out a better way to do this. We're never going to figure out a better way to build muscle and strength. We've got everything we need. We're just going to create different ways of doing the same thing. Ravi, hey, Matt, I use vibration drills for warming up that I learned from GMB. I was wondering if you think vibration plates can help with warm-ups, blood flow to the muscles. I haven't done a whole lot with it, but I am very much because basically what vibration does is it just creates a, not subliminal, but a, what's the word I'm looking for? Just a reaction of the nervous system to tighten up. It just gets everything engaged. So that's what I use isometrics for. The same thing, only I don't need the vibration. I just push and pull against something. But it's just trying to get the nervous system to warm up, to engage the muscles. And any way you can do that, that's great. If you've got someone who has a vibration plate or something like that, give it a shot. Put your hands on it, and hold down in the bottom of like a push-up position for like 10 seconds. And shake out a little bit, go do push-ups, see if you feel any sort of difference. It can be a lot of fun that way. Joe Phil asking again, Matt, thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge and experience. Thank you so much, Joe. I really do appreciate you being on. Very much a good thing. Abar Hassan. I always got my D's and B's mixed up in grade school, slightly dyslexic. Hey, Matt, quick question. What if the goal is to do 100 reps, push-ups in a row? Do I work slow reps to get control better? No. Mm-mm. Because what you're doing is you're taking more time per rep. You're using more energy per rep. So let's say 100 push-ups, right? Again, why that? Like, are you just pulling it out of thin air? We typically get an emotional attachment to a goal because we think it's going to do something. If I do 100 push-ups a day, I'll get jacked. Who says? It's certainly possible to not have anything happen at 100 push-ups a day. But, sometimes people like, you need to be able to do 100 push-ups in order to pass a PT test or something. So in that case, what you want to do is go fast because you want to spend as little energy and effort as possible in every repetition. So that way you can increase the number of reps. Repetitions are just a timing mechanism. So if you can have less invested in each rep, then you can do more reps. So again, it's like one real slow rep over 20 seconds or 20 reps, one every second. Time-wise, energy-wise, it's probably going to iron out about the same. We can nitpick it to death and say why one might be better than the other, but really it's about the same. So what we want to do here is faster. You can take advantage of some of that myotactic reflex where you're just kind of bouncing out of positions. You can fall a little bit and let the muscle relax a little bit so you're having a little bit less tension, less time for every repetition. So that way you can get a lot more. Usually whenever you find people who are like, I can do 200 push-ups, watch, and they're like, like real fast and quick. They're not doing it slow. So you don't want to do it slow. Add in some slow training just to supplement that sort of thing. But yeah, if you came to me and said, Matt, if you do 100 push-ups, you'll win $1 million. I'm like, okay, deep breath and go as fast as I possibly can kind of thing. Stefan, hey Matt, do you count your calories? Would you recommend it? Calorie counting is a great thing to do to get a baseline of where you are. No, calorie counting, quite frankly, is just a big pain in the ass. I don't do it for that exact reason. I know a lot of times, and it's a personality thing. A lot of people, they like to be what I call bean counters. They're good with spreadsheets. They know everything about Excel. They got every, tracker on them and stuff like that. I honestly couldn't possibly care less about any sort of trackers. One of the gyms that I worked at, we have these MyZone belts, and they track calories and they track heart rate zones and they track all sorts of different metrics and stuff like that. And I never wear it. And they're like, why? It's like, I just don't care. You could come to me and like, you burned 3,283 calories today. I'd be like, whoop-de-frickin' do. Like, I care. I don't know that doesn't mean anything to me kind of thing. It's usually, again, when it looks to weight, it's like, am I eating enough or not enough? And I'll just eat and change things accordingly. But yeah, usually the way I approach things is get to a baseline. What is normal habits for you? What does a normal diet look like to you? What are you eating? When are you eating? How much are you eating? Just kind of get to a baseline. And then if you're like, I want to add weight, or, I want more food, or I want less food, I want to lose weight, you just change from the baseline. Because it's not about numbers. It's about changing what is normal. So if I'm usually eating like a snack after dinner or something, and I'm like, okay, I'm a little softer in the middle here, got to cut back. Okay, dinner, and I don't have my ice cream afterwards, which, could be a regular thing 4 nights a week for me. Okay, no ice cream after dinner. Am I losing weight because I'm not eating ice cream? No, I'm losing weight because I'm eating less than I normally do. And that's usually the way I go about it is, what is your normal? And then change your behaviors from that. And that's a much more, I find, a reliable way to go about it. Because again, here we go with another mistake. People get caught up in metrics. They get caught up in this idea of, if I have this many sets or reps or calories or something, then I can expect this kind of result, which is little more than an estimated guess. Because a lot of times I get emails and stuff from people saying, I thought if I did 100 push-ups, I'd get jacked. I thought if I did more push-ups, I'd build muscle. I thought if I ate so many calories, I'd lose weight or build or gain weight or whatever. And there's no promise in a number. None at all, especially if you're getting it off the internet, because almost everything off the internet is an estimated guess, which is another mistake I'll get into in a second. But the internet is a terrible place to know what you really should be doing. I know, irony of ironies, I'm on the podcast and YouTube channel here on the internet. But seriously, Anybody who's like, you should eat this many calories, you should do this many sets and reps. It's a guess, people. It is a full-on estimated guess. Shake the magic 8 ball. How many sets should I do? Ask again, Baldy. My magic 8 ball is always rude to me. It's a little more than that. Like, no, we're citing these studies and stuff. I'm like, yeah, that worked for the people in the study, but what about you? Everybody's different kind of thing. So don't be a metric slave. Don't think if I do X amount of things or eat this many things and stuff, that's going to be the key to the results. The key to the results is establishing a baseline and then changing off the baseline according to what is prudent for your goals. That's what's important. Because I don't know how many times people have come to me and they're like, well, I followed this formula and nothing happened, but I quote, broke the rules, and everybody and their mom is like a rebel these days. And they're like, I broke the rules and I ate twice as much, or I did twice as many, or I lifted, half as much or whatever. Whatever the thing was, they broke the rules and then they got results. They weren't following a metric or a formula. They were actually doing what their body really needed. And that's what's most important, not exactly like, how many calories should I eat kind of thing. Matt asking, Andre's coming on one again. One more question. I go to gym 3 times a week. Recently, I've been doing micro workout approach, my book, Micro Workouts, shameless plug down below. In my rest days, as someone, so you're really working out 7 days a week, 6-7 days a week. As someone new to bodyweight training, how should I progress with my micro workouts? Same way you progress with any workouts. So once again, though, we want to ask, progress what? What are you progressing? Well, what do you want to accomplish? Kind of thing. Progressing range of motion, progressing stamina and endurance, progressing strength, progressing power and explosiveness. What are you trying to progress? Yeah, that's the key thing. Don't just assume you're going to get what you want because you're just progressing whatever pops into your head first. Like, if I do more reps, that's going to be better, right? I don't know, maybe not. Sometimes that could be the worst thing for you. So what are you looking to progress? And then, of course, what you do is you just progressively challenge that thing. Okay, and micro workouts work for the same reason all other workouts work. There's nothing different about them. They're just structured in a way that's much more time and energy efficient, which basically means you get rid of all the fluff and the crap that doesn't matter. So you're much more focused on the stuff that does. So you want to get stronger, progress your strength. You want endurance, progress the amount that you're doing relative to rest. You want power and explosiveness, progress that power and explosiveness. You gain that which you challenge, my friend, regardless of what the workout is. So challenge what you want in a progressive manner, even with the micro workouts. But I would say, with such progression, make sure that you are still getting adequate rest. One of the best ways to know if you're not is if you're having a real hard time progressing your workouts. More is always better. Not always. The whole point of working out is not to work out. The goal is to create a stimulus. And you create you always create a stimulus, but are you creating a progressive stimulus? Are you telling your body in your workouts that was good, but you got to step it up? You got to do it a little bit better. And that's how micro workouts work, because that's how working out works. Back and forth here. Answer a couple other questions. Hey, Coach Matt, any idea on how to control aggression and excessive energy after stopping pain relief drugs? Because I feel too much motivation. I want to train. Go, man, go. And what I would do if, in this case, aggression and stuff, it can be for a number of things. We've all got our emotional baggage and stuff like that. Whatever's in creating that energy, you want to use that energy in a constructive way. It's a good thing to have that kind of energy, because you need good energy in order to do things in life. But use it in a constructive way. So I would look at things that use a lot of energy, particularly longer exercise if you can. Getting outside and going is usually a good approach. A good friend of mine that I grew up with had quite a bit of a turbulent time in her life. I mean, she had like cancer and family issues. And also, I mean, she's got inner strength that I'll probably never have for going through this time in her life. And she got hella into like in super endurance sports, like ultra marathons. She would go and run 10 miles and then come home and then run and hike up Mount Mansfield, which is the tallest mountain in Vermont. I mean, most people I know, if they hiked Mount Mansfield alone, it would destroy them. they would get down to the bottom like, I'm not walking again for a week. It's one of those mountains that seems easier than it really is. So she would like literally run 10 miles and then come home and be like, I'm going to go up Mount Mansfield too. It's like, dear God. So that's what I would do. I would go and look into a little bit something more with some endurance to it, like exhaust yourself. I know that's usually not my take, where I'm like, always save a little in the tank and you want to recover well and stuff. If you've got a lot of that energy, try to exhaust yourself. It's cathartic. It's really good. When I go and ride my bike up Lookout Mountain out here, I mean, we've got mountains, trails out here that literally are 2 hours of solid climbing. Like, yep, we start riding and we're going to be going uphill for the next 2 hours. You get to the top though, and suddenly like a lot of those demons inside are like not there so much anymore. It's like, I feel cleansed and it's cathartic and it feels good to just, look into things like that. See if you can find some like really big staircases or some hills and stuff that you can sprint. Something that's going to take like a 20-minute climb that you can get, and time yourself and see if you can beat that. That's what I would go after. Something that's just this outpouring of energy. A lot of times when I talk about fundamental objectives, energy expenditure is a good thing to go after. And it's not always about burning calories for the sake of weight loss. A lot of times exercising for the sake of expending energy is emotional and mental relief. We want to expend a lot of emotional and mental energy and just go out. When I go out mountain biking and stuff, I don't care about burning calories, but man, it just feels like the weight of the world comes off my shoulders sometimes after a good ride, just because you're getting it out of your system. So that's what I would look to do personally if I were in your shoes. Scimitar, what's the difference between getting stronger, more muscular, and getting healthy? I have a feeling they are not the same. Oh, what a great question. This is awesome. So here's another mistake, because that's our theme for today is mistakes. More is always better, right? That's a big mistake that we always make. And this is made all the time, and it's a very easy one to make because oftentimes we start on a path and we start making changes like, okay, I cut back on some junk food and I start doing some push-ups and I'm drinking more water. Okay. And oh, look, I'm feeling better and I'm building a little muscle. And this is really good. And you get caught in a positive feedback loop. But remember the law or the principle of hormesis, my friends, that the amount of something you do can create completely opposite results. So a little bit of strength training can make you stronger. A lot of strength training can make you weaker. Okay? A little bit of dieting can help you lose body fat. Too much dieting can actually make it harder to regulate your body composition. So anything that's good can become potentially the complete opposite in bad if the dose is off. So in the case here of building muscle, there are a million things out there that say, yes, building some muscle and some strength is incredibly important for your health and longevity. 100% guaranteed, definitely. But up to a point. Same thing with weight loss. Losing some body fat, awesome. But at a certain point, it will compromise the very things you're going after. Check out Mindful Mover. My buddy Phil over at Mindful Mover, he's a classic example of this because he got on that train of like more muscle is always better. Better. And his health went down the tubes. He had like heart issues. He had digestive issues. He had, I don't want to speak for him. I'm just kind of guessing here, but he had a ton of health issues. In the pursuit of more muscle is always better. So we want to look at the cost to benefit ratio always, because more is not always better. There is a certain point for all goals and all behaviors where it's not just even diminishing rate of return. Like, okay, if you keep doing more, you will get better results, but it's not much better. At a certain point, it's like, not only are you not getting better results, you're going backwards. You're getting worse results with that. And that's always there. It's always lurking in the darkness. So we don't want to fall into that idea and make the mistake of more is always better. Building muscle is just such a case. In many cases, it can be completely backwards, even for a healthy level of muscle. I mean, for me, like the amount of muscle I have is relatively easy to maintain, good for my health and everything. Now, in all honesty, though, I'm a shitty mountain bike racer. Much worse than I used to be. Why? Because I'm 40 pounds heavier. That's not going to help me on the mountain bike. That makes me a lot slower. So, I mean, my boss, he's one of the best mountain bikers in the country. And he's like, Matt, if you want to be a better mountain biker, you got to lose some muscle. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm not willing to make that happen. And that's perfectly fine, but that's the reality of it. If I want to be a good mountain biker, I got to jettison some of the upper body muscle. It's not always helpful. So that's why we always don't want to make a mistake of more is always better, and always looking for, okay, this is good, but at what point is it no longer beneficial to me? Because that level is there. And when you identify it and you get away from it, then you stop making that mistake. Grand Rapids. I like the avatar. Very cute. Do you have something to say about barrel chest people with this condition, like build, chiseled chest? Thank you. Yeah. So, but builds is very much a determining factor for your physique development. Full stop. Genetics play a huge role in your aesthetic appearance. There's just no way around it. Genetic, you can do a lot with diet and exercise, but it's not omnipotent. At a certain point, it's like, yep, there's just not much you can do about that. So, I have a very blocky torso. Like I had straight lines on either side. If I build myself up, it's still shaped like this. That's why generally when it comes to changing out your physique, for the most part, your muscular build and your shape and size is always going to be roughly the same. Unless you go to real extremes, your general shape and build is always going to be about the same. So you're augmenting the appearance of your body, but you can't necessarily change it, as it were. So yeah, barrel chest, like that's a good thing in many cases. Like there are a lot of sports and there's a lot of times where that's good. That's fantastic. Versus someone like my brother-in-law, he's built, very narrow and very, very slender kind of thing. If he's like, dude, I want a big, massive chest, I'm like, buddy, just not going to happen. You got a torso like Kermit the Frog. There's no way you're going to get that to be that big and wide versus, we've got, I am Sven from the logging community, and you can't even get your arms around him. I'm like, yep, that's how you're built, buddy. Big and burly kind of thing. So embrace your build, like appreciate it, modify it as you like, but don't try, and that's a mistake I guess we could name there. Don't try to make your body different than it is because we don't have quite that much type of augmentation ability. David Baker, hey Matt, I've been doing Atlas push-ups on plyo boxes. Yep. But changed to the rings after seeing your workout video. Wow, my chest is on fire and incredibly pumped. Oh yeah, gymnastics rings, fantastic for that, David. I once, back in the day, met an exercise physiologist. He was like, back in the 80s, he did a study. He was telling me this in the gym. He's like, I did a study where I did bench press versus push-ups on gymnastics rings. And he said that he found that people had better activation in the chest on the gymnastics rings. And I think it's just simple that you have to squeeze in because if you don't have that stability, your natural inclination is to spread apart and you have to use your chest more to squeeze it in versus with a regular barbell, the bar is keeping your hands in place. It's just that. It's, if you did dumbbells, it'd probably be about the same sort of thing. But yeah, push-ups on rings, fantastic type of ways to go about it. It's one of those things that has a great natural feel to it, is what I'm basically trying to say. Excuse me. Grand Rapids, again, how to be more vascular if you don't have the genetics for it. When I was 17 years old, I weighed 85 kilos. So what is that, like 500 pounds? I don't know. I'm an American. I don't know my tricks. I kid, of course. And I was over 5 feet 11, 180 centimeters at that moment. I never had veiny arms, even being very low body fat. Yeah, and again, I think you hit the nail right on the head, genetics. A lot of it depends on subcutaneous fat distribution, right? So fat, is like any other tissue in the body. A lot of its size and shape and distribution is just determined by genetics. There you go. Some guys, I know guys where they've got a beer belly, but they're skinny and scrawny everywhere else. They're like, why is it all here? I'm like, ask your parents. They're the ones who gave you those genetics kind of thing. And vascularity, same sort of thing. Like I've usually got some degree of vascularity. I don't know if you can quite see in the light here, some vascularity in my forearms and biceps and stuff like that. But I'm lucky. I've got fairly lean arms. Some people, they just don't have it. So yeah, you can get your body fat levels a little lower, build up the muscle too. That can help and pushes the veins closer to the skin. But there may only be so much you can do with that. But don't worry too much about it. Most of the people I know, it's like, think vascularity is kind of gross. The number of times girls have been like, "Oh God, your forearms are so gross." I'm like, "There's nothing I can do about it, sweetheart. Sorry about that." Especially if I've been like rock climbing or something like that, and I got a forearm pump going on. Let's see, what else can we do real quick before I head on out? Prod coming on again. Hey, Matt, is it bad to do jump rope in 28-degree weather? No, go for it, man. Just make sure that you're using layers to regulate body temperature. I love working out in colder weather. It's fantastic, wonderful. Just make sure you don't get cold, but at the same time, you don't get sweaty, because then you get cold when you're sweaty, you're in trouble, at least in the backcountry. So regulate body temperature with layers, and maybe keep a hat on or gloves and stuff like that if extremities get cold. Alex Armini, hey, it's good to see you again, Alex. How you been? Hey, Matt, can you share some of the exercises that your chiropractor recommended that you do that helped your shoulder? If I recall, your program has helped my shoulder so much. I'm curious that helped even more. So a big part of that was just in my neck. So actually, I have it right here. My chiropractor gave me this. This is called a Denerol. Sounds like dinner roll, but I don't know if I can quite see that. There we go. Denerol, Dennerro. And what I do is I lay on the ground, and that cranks my neck back a little bit, and it helps to restore the curvature of my neck. So curvature in my neck, shoulders come back, shoulders become depressed, better scapular orientation. So back to the side plank that we were talking about before, I was going from elevated and protracted to retracted and depressed. Boom, better shoulder alignment, game over for basically all of my shoulder issues. So it's funny, like this is why, and this is the mistake I was alluding to earlier, is don't try to figure stuff out entirely on your own, especially through the internet. The internet's a horrible place to figure out aches and pains and stuff. You just spend it forever on PubMed and you go around in circles. One of the biggest myths that the internet has populated is that you can figure out life on your own, that you can figure out fitness on your own and your problems on your own and stuff. That's complete boohickey. You can't do this on your own. You need help. And even then, people are like, well, yeah, sure. I've got this app that I downloaded and stuff. And I've got, this coaching call. It's in person. See someone face to face. I know the pandemic's starting to wane and stuff like that. It's easier to do now. See them in person. That's the only way. That is the gold standard for helping you get what you need. I tell people all the time, I can help you more in 5 minutes in person than I can in 5 months through my YouTube videos, because I can look at you and instantly be like, you've got X, Y, and Z. You need to do A, B, and C. You could spend years trying to figure that out. I had no idea I needed to fix my neck. Right? I'm always stretching shoulder, shoulder. And in 2 minutes, my chiropractor was like, your neck is way out of whack. We got to fix that. What about my shoulder? We'll fix your neck. Shoulder will be fine. Shoulder's fine. Everything about your shoulder is fine. It's your neck. Never would have figured that out. If I called him up, if I was like, writing an email, my shoulder hurts. What do you think is wrong? Whatever answer he gave me, it was probably going to be wrong. But in person, he took an x-ray. He looked at me and stuff. He's like, yeah, your neck is all kind of screwy. In person, you don't want to try and figure this stuff out on your own. Sometimes it can be, but I always tell people, if the answer is simple and easy, you should be able to apply it immediately. Like sometimes it could be something like you search on my video, like, why does my wrist hurt when I do this? Oh, try this exercise. 2 minutes later, you come back, oh, wow, that feels great. Okay, thanks, great. If it is what you need, it should be it. But don't be an idiot like me and be like, well, I still got this issue 2 years later. And like, you're not fixing it. Whatever you think is the solution is not the solution. Go see someone in person, someone who's an expert in their field, and they're going to know a hell of a lot more than you. And that's the big mistake that I made. That's for darn sure. Let's see, a couple last ones here. I know this is kind of going a lot long. Chris, thank you very, very much for the donation. Much appreciated. Asking the question here, though, Ben's struggling to achieve a handstand, can't jump up to it. I'm overweight. Is it purely about skill, or do I need to build leg strength? It is very much a skill. We actually attended a handstand workshop the other day that a coworker posted about it. It is very much about skill, but what I would recommend is really practice a lot of those pike push-ups that we were talking about earlier, just to get more open. So a lot of times, handstand is a mobility exercise. So this is the thing that I can't do very well. I'm a lot better now with shoulders are back. And can you be straight up? Can you take both arms straight up without arching your back? Or another way to look at it is, can you lay flat on the floor with your lower back on the ground and bring your hands, they don't necessarily need to be touching the floor, but by your ears. If you have that, you have the mobility for it. If you can't do that, no amount of skill or strength is going to give you the handstand, because you're going to be all banana curvy and stuff like that all over the place. So check that mobility and then see if it's more in your wheelhouse. Monkey B, I realize that most cyclists only have big legs, skinny upper bodies just from their normal activity. Absolutely. And even then, skinny legs for sure. I know plenty of cyclists. It's like, dude, eat a sandwich. Holy smokes, that's scrawny. But that's why cycling is all about power to weight ratio. You look at professional cyclists and it's like, yep, I'm 6'2", 130 pounds, and I can back squat 540 for reps. It's like, dear God, how is that even human? The answer is no. If you ever see a pro cyclist, wow, it's like they're insane with that sort of thing. It's ridiculous how fast they are. You can't even fathom a human being can move that fast under their own power. I was riding one time with a guy who was a masters cyclist, and I caught up to him, and I was like on my road bike. I got my spandex, I got the shoes, and I'm like all down. I'm like, "Arr!" And this guy's on like a granny bike that he rented. It looked like something you got from a garage sale. Jeans, tennis shoes, in a hoodie, and he's just riding around Burlington because he's got a trip that he's doing. And I caught up to him like, hey, he's like, hey, it's Silas. I'm like, oh, you're a rider? Yeah, I'm here for the Masters. Great, wonderful. I'm looking at him like, he's like, oh, my gear isn't here yet. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like riding with him, like really aggressive, like, yeah. And then he's like, okay, well, this has been fun, but I'm out of here. And it's boom. He just tore off like I was literally standing still. Like, stand still and have someone ride a bike away from you as fast as they can. And that's how fast this guy dropped me. Well, I was going as fast as I could, wearing tennis shoes and, jeans on a crappy garage sale bike. And I'm like, oh, that's pro sports for you. They're on another level, I got to tell you. A couple last ones. Marco, hey, Matt, any tips for dealing with sternum pain while doing ring dips? I really love the exercise. Yeah, you just strained a little something there. It's very common issue sort of thing. Regress to incline push-ups, let it heal. It's going to take some time. So incline push-ups on the rings, just nice. Let it stretch, but gentle, my friend. Gentle, my friend. Give it plenty of movement. Give it nice and easy. Don't try to strain it any further, and you'll be able to come back to it as well. Grand Rapids, last one for the night. I really got good at push-ups, lots of them, variations, but still lack good chest. Do you think resistance bands can help, or waste of money? If you're getting really good at push-ups, that's you're fundamentally as good as it's going to probably get. So what I would look in that case is just how good is your chest activation right there. So usually when people are like, oh, this muscle group is lagging, even though they're doing exercise that should be working it, that tells me the activation is off. So it's probably not going to get fixed with a tool. It's probably going to get more from the activation. So this exercise, the isometric, squeezing in, can you get your chest to light up like a Christmas tree? Just really, really big, full. Are you getting a big, full pump in your chest after those push-ups? That's what you're looking for, just to make sure we're engaging them. And if not, then, check out my book, Overcoming Isometrics, down below. Because if you can engage the muscle better, you can build it. Usually lack of development shows lack of engagement. Not always, but usually kind of thing. One best exercise for rotator cuff health, anything on rings and suspension trainers. Because I know this is, you see it all the time. Guys, bench day, and they spend like 20 minutes doing this kind of stuff. No one has weak rotator cuffs for a lack of rotator cuff exercises. You have weak rotator cuff exercises because your shoulder stability sucks. The rotator cuff is fundamentally a very weak muscle group because it doesn't do a whole lot. It has a minimal stability requirement. But when your scapular stability isn't up to par, that stability of your rotator cuff has to take over, and it'll never be strong enough in order to handle that. It's kind of like people who are like, oh, I got to work my lower back No, you need stronger glutes and hamstrings. If your glutes and hamstrings aren't doing the job they should be doing, your lower back will always get overloaded and it'll never be strong enough. Same thing with rotator cuffs. If you have strong scapular control, cat-cows, and getting a lot of scapular movement with stuff, you should never need rotator cuff work. Unless you're doing, of course, rotator cuff therapy and stuff like that. It's one of those things that it's just inherently baked into our exercises, and it shouldn't need anything special for it. Doing things where it's, the rotating motions of the rings and push-ups and rows and stuff like that should be more than enough to take care of it. I can't stop. I got to keep answering questions. I love doing this here, folks. This is honestly, it's Saturday afternoon, and this is the highlight of my week. I always say that because it's true. Any advice for optimal outer chest activation when doing dips? Yeah, light up the whole chest. So we are always, again, another thing, okay, mistake, that good one to end on is we take a bodybuilder approach where we are thinking, okay, upper chest, outer chest, upper outer chest, upper little 3/4 muscle fiber chest here. No. Whole thing, boom, light it all up, and you don't have to worry about, am I working the upper outer left chest, is Mercury in retrograde and all this, blah, 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 blah. Light up the whole thing. Get the whole thing working. Don't worry about trying to nitpick everything to death with this stuff. That's holdover from bodybuilder stuff. Probably doesn't have any relevance whatsoever to normal people who aren't looking to step on stage. And it's like you have exactly 3 millimeters more development on the upper left quadrant of your left chest than your right chest, which is the stuff you're judged on in bodybuilding. General strength and muscle and stuff, don't worry about it. Use the whole thing with every pressing move. You don't have to worry about it anymore. All right. Okay, folks, I am going to take off and get some food and see what else I can do to fill my Saturday night. Probably work on my next book, which is all on suspension calisthenics, ring work, and stuff like that. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming on. As always, don't forget, check out the RDP library down below for some of the resources that I mentioned. Grind Style Calisthenics, the new workout is out. It's free. It's on the RDP YouTube channel. Micro workouts, overcoming isometrics that I mentioned, as well as things like isometric equipment, NOSC suspension equipment, and the Duonomic pull-up handles and rings, all down below in the description. Check it out. Helps to support the channel. Much appreciated. And I will talk to you folks. Actually, not next Saturday. Next Saturday, I am celebrating with a friend of mine. I am out, but I promise I will make up an audio that I will share on the Red Delta Project podcast. So make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you can get more updated stuff there as well. I'll talk to you folks next week. Till then, be fit and live free.